They gave the world some of the greatest music ever recorded. But the story behind this miniseries was even wilder than the songs themselves. The most unforgettable line in the film was never written in the script. One actor stayed in character so intensely that his castmates genuinely disliked him. They couldn't even shoot the movie in Detroit. Several families filed lawsuits trying to stop the broadcast. And the man whose life inspired it has never watched the full series. These are 14 weird facts you didn't know about the Temptations. Now let's take a trip back to Motown. Number 1. Leon was never meant to play David Ruffin. When NBC approved a 4-hour miniseries based on Otis Williams' autobiography, the real Otis played a major role in production decisions, and he had one clear idea for casting. He wanted Leon to portray him on screen. It made perfect sense. Leon had already shown strong musical charisma in films like The Five Heartbeats and Cool Runnings. He had the confidence, stage presence, and charm that Otis believed matched his own younger self. Producers agreed the role was ready for him, but Leon surprised everyone. He turned down the chance to play Otis, not the project itself. When asked which role he wanted instead, Leon said he believed he could contribute more by taking on David Ruffin. That changed everything. Ruffin was the most explosive and difficult character in the story. He was the powerhouse voice behind My Girl, but also the member whose ego and addiction nearly tore the group apart. Later, some involved with the production admitted they had no clear backup choice for Ruffin if Leon had not stepped in. His decision helped shape the entire miniseries and gave it one of its most unforgettable performances. Number 2. The most famous line was completely improvised. If you've seen The Temptations, then you already know the line. And even if you haven't, chances are someone has repeated it to you somewhere. The scene shows Otis Williams confronting David Ruffin for missing rehearsals, arriving late and behaving like a solo star instead of a group member. Otis reminds him that fans are coming to see The Temptations, not just one man. Then Ruffin fires back with a response that became legendary. What makes it even crazier is that the line was never written by the screenwriters. Leon created it during rehearsal while fully immersed in character. It came out naturally in the moment, and everyone on set immediately knew it was gold. Leon later explained that the scene felt so real that the tension between him and actor Charles Malik Whitfield was genuine. Whitfield, who played Otis, was actually irritated by the delivery. That anger helped make the scene unforgettable. To this day, Leon says people constantly ask him to repeat that line in public. It became bigger than the miniseries itself, and one of the most quoted moments in television history. Number 3. Leon's method. Acting made his co-stars dislike him. Leon didn't simply play David Ruffin, he became him for the entire production. From the moment filming started, Leon stayed in character almost non-stop. He kept Ruffin's trademark sunglasses on constantly, even when cameras were not rolling. Between takes, during breaks, and around the set, he still behaved like David. He studied Ruffin's body language, swagger, attitude, and personality until it completely took over his performance. According to later interviews, Leon was so committed that people close to him were expected to call him David during filming. Not Leon, David. That was the level of dedication he brought to the role, but not everyone appreciated it. Director Alan Arkush later described Leon as having a strong personality and said he often stirred things up on set. Other cast members had to deal with someone who refused to break character, which created real tension behind the scenes. Leon eventually learned that some of his co-stars genuinely didn't like him while they were making the miniseries. Ironically, that discomfort may have helped the film. The real relationship between Ruffin and the rest of the Temptations was filled with conflict, ego, and resentment. Because the tension was real off-camera, it made every confrontation on screen feel even more authentic. Number 4. They couldn't film in Detroit. The Temptations tells a story rooted in Detroit. That city was the birthplace of Motown, the home of Hitsville, USA, and the place where Otis Williams helped build one of music's greatest groups. Detroit was part of the band's identity. But when production began, filmmakers discovered they couldn't realistically shoot there. Director Alan Arkush explained that many neighborhoods no longer looked like the middle-class Detroit of the 1950s and 1960s that the story required. Too many buildings had been abandoned, demolished, or drastically changed. There was also another issue. Detroit didn't yet have the film production infrastructure needed for a project of that size. There were limited crews, limited support systems, and not enough resources for a large television event. So instead, the production moved to Pittsburgh. Sets were built from scratch, including recreations of famous Motown locations. A residential area was transformed into the world where the Temptations began. Most viewers never noticed the switch. Millions watched the miniseries believing they were seeing Detroit, when in reality they were watching Pittsburgh stand in for one of America's most iconic music cities. Number 5. The cast faced real racism. While filming, The Temptations tells the story of a legendary black group rising through an America divided by segregation. The series included painful moments showing what black performers faced while touring through the Jim Crow South in the 1960s. But while filming in 1998, the cast experienced something disturbingly similar themselves. Terron Brooks, who played Eddie Kendricks, later recalled that one night, several cast members went out together after work to grab food. They were simply looking for something to eat after a long day on set. Instead, bottles were thrown at them. This didn't happen decades earlier in the South. It happened in Pittsburgh in 1998. A group of actors working on a major television production were attacked simply for being black and visible in public. Brooks later said experiences like that were unfortunately familiar to many black men. The incident gave the cast a much deeper emotional understanding of the material they were portraying. Suddenly, scenes involving fear, hatred, and danger no longer felt distant or historical. What happened off camera reminded everyone that some of the struggles shown in the story had never fully disappeared. Number 6. The actor playing Otis joined just 1 week before filming. Charles Malik Whitfield became the face of Otis Williams in the miniseries, but he almost never took the role. Producers originally wanted Whitfield from the start. He had the screen presence, maturity, and strength needed to carry a 4-hour story centered around the only surviving original member of the group. But Whitfield hesitated. His concern was simple but serious. He believed someone with stronger singing ability should portray Otis. After all, the Temptations were built on vocals, harmonies, and stage performance. Whitfield saw himself primarily as an actor, not a singer, and questioned whether he could truly do the part justice. As production deadlines approached, the studio reportedly considered other options, including Isaiah Washington. Time was running out fast. Then Whitfield finally agreed, just 1 week before cameras began rolling. That meant he had almost no preparation time to learn the choreography, gestures, stage movement, and personality of a man who had led one of music's greatest groups for decades. Luckily, Christian Payton, who played Paul Williams, helped him rehearse late into the night, teaching him the dance routines and performance style audiences expected. Despite the rushed start, Whitfield's performance earned major praise, and many younger viewers would forever know him simply as Otis. Number 7. The My Girl scene had no script at all. One of the most memorable moments in The Temptations was filmed without a single scripted line. Director Alan Arkush had the chance to meet Smokey Robinson during pre-production. During their conversation, Smokey shared the real story of how he first introduced a brand new song to The Temptations at Hitsville, USA. He gathered the group around a piano and taught it to them right there. That song was My Girl. Arkush was fascinated. He had just heard the origin story of one of the most beloved songs in American music, from the man who actually wrote it. Instead of turning that moment into a traditional scripted scene, he made a bold decision. He simply told the cast what Smokey had described, then asked them to perform the scene naturally in character. No written dialogue, no fixed blocking, no rehearsed reactions. Everything was improvised. That's why the sequence feels so genuine. The amazement on the actors' faces as they hear My Girl for the first time feels real because, in many ways, it was. They weren't acting out a polished script. They were discovering the moment together. Sometimes the best scenes happen when no one is following the page. Number 8. Smokey Robinson called the director and sang over the phone during production of The Temptations. Smokey Robinson saw some early footage from the project. He loved what he saw. More than that, he was emotionally moved watching actors bring his old friends back to life. so he personally called director Alan Arkush while filming was still underway. Smokey had two requests. First, he wanted to appear in the miniseries himself. He would later make a cameo appearance singing at Melvin Franklin's funeral scene. Second, he said he had an idea for an original theme song. Then something incredible happened. Right there on the phone, Smokey asked if Arkush wanted to hear it. The director sat down outside on a curb while production paused around him. And through the phone line, Smokey Robinson sang the melody directly to him. No studio, no orchestra, no audience. Just one of Motown's greatest songwriters performing a private preview for a single listener. That melody eventually became "Be Careful What You Wish For," the song used over the closing credits. It's not every day a legendary artist calls your set and gives you a personal concert. Number 9. Terron Brooks actually sang Eddie Kendrick's vocals. Most music biopics rely on the original recordings. Actors lip sync while the real artist's voice plays in the background. It's safer, easier, and usually more believable. But the Temptations took a much riskier route. Terron Brooks, who played Eddie Kendricks, didn't just perform the role, he sang many of the vocals himself. Brooks was only 23 years old and had no film experience when he joined the production. He originally auditioned for another role, but producers believed he was the perfect fit for Kendricks. That meant taking on one of the most recognizable falsetto voices in Motown history. He re-recorded Eddie's lead vocals for "Just My Imagination," one of the group's biggest hits and one of the most beloved performances ever released. Brooks later admitted it was intimidating. Fans knew every note and every detail of Eddie's voice. Any mistake would be obvious. But many viewers never realized they were hearing Brooks instead of the original singer. His sound came so close to Kendrick's that audiences assumed it was archival audio. For Brooks, that confusion became the greatest compliment of his career. Number 10. Multiple families sued the miniseries. The Temptations was based on the autobiography of Otis Williams. It told the story through his memories, experiences, and perspective. But not everyone agreed with how that story was presented. Before and after the broadcast, several people connected to the real group filed lawsuits. Among them were Otis Williams' ex-wife, Josephine Miles, the mother of Melvin Franklin, and the group's early manager, Johnny May Matthews. They claimed defamation, emotional distress, inaccurate portrayals, and unauthorized use of their names or likenesses. The most dramatic legal move came from the family of David Ruffin. His daughter reportedly tried to stop the series from airing just weeks before its premiere. She wanted references to her father removed unless compensation was paid to the estate. The request was denied, and NBC aired the miniseries as planned. In the end, the lawsuits failed, and the courts ruled in favor of the production. But the controversy revealed something deeper. Telling a famous story can be just as messy as living it. Even when history is public, ownership of that history is often fiercely personal. Number 11. The ratings were absolutely massive when The Temptations premiered in November 1998. Few expected a 4-hour television drama about a Motown group to become a national event. But that is exactly what happened. Across its 2-night broadcast, the miniseries drew around 45 million viewers. The first night alone earned enormous Nielsen numbers, making it one of the biggest television events of the season. In some cities, nearly 1 out of every 3 televisions that were turned on were tuned to the Temptations. That kind of audience was rare even in the 1990s, especially with dozens of cable channels competing for attention. Numbers like that were usually reserved for championship sports or blockbuster finales. The success didn't stop there. The production received multiple Primetime Emmy Awards nominations, and director Alan Arkush won for Outstanding Directing. It also earned major recognition from the NAACP Image Awards. With more than 40 licensed Motown songs included, the series later returned in reruns and home video releases. For younger viewers who barely knew the group, it became an introduction. For older viewers, it was a reunion with legends. And for one weekend, the Temptations brought millions of Americans together in front of the same screen. Number 12. The miniseries helped launch major careers. For many viewers, The Temptations was unforgettable entertainment, but for several cast members, it was also a career-changing opportunity. D.B. Woodside played Melvin Franklin, the deep-voiced, loyal bass singer who stayed with the group through every storm. At the time, Woodside was still early in his career. After the miniseries, bigger roles followed. He later appeared in 24 Buffy the Vampire Slayer and became widely known worldwide through Lucifer. Charles Malik Whitfield continued building a long television career after portraying Otis Williams, appearing in major shows for years afterward. Terron Brooks turned his success into a strong stage career. He later performed on Broadway, including roles in The Lion King and Hairspray. And Leon was already established before the series, but his portrayal of David Ruffin became one of the most recognized performances of his career. Decades later, people still quote his scenes back to him. Sometimes a miniseries tells one success story on screen and creates several more behind the scenes. Number 13. Motown legends quietly guided the film behind the scenes. Even though The Temptations was a dramatization, the production had something many music biopics never get: direct support from real Motown insiders. Otis Williams was deeply involved in the project from the beginning. Because the series was based on his autobiography, he helped shape the story, approved key decisions, and worked to keep major moments faithful to the truth as he remembered it. But he wasn't the only legend connected to the production. Smokey Robinson also supported the project, contributed music, and even appeared on screen. His presence added credibility no outside consultant could match. That kind of involvement mattered. It meant actors weren't only studying books or old performances, they were working on a project touched by the very people who had lived the Motown era. Many scenes carried extra authenticity because they came through memories from those who were actually there. From backstage habits to studio energy, the miniseries benefited from voices that knew the story firsthand. That is one reason the series felt less like fiction and more like history brought back to life. Number 14. Otis Williams never watched the full miniseries. You would assume the man whose life inspired The Temptations would be its biggest viewer. But that never happened. Otis Williams served as a producer, consulted on the project, and helped guide the story. Yet despite all of that involvement, he has said he never watched the complete miniseries. He did visit the set once. During that visit, he watched Leon performing as David Ruffin. Seeing someone recreate his former bandmate brought back powerful emotions. Years had passed since the group's most painful chapters. Time should have created distance, but according to Otis, the feelings were still there. Watching those moments come alive again felt like reopening old wounds. He later explained that the stage musical Ain't Too Proud was easier for him to handle. But the television miniseries felt too personal, too direct, and too real. That may be the strongest compliment the production could ever receive. It recreated history so honestly that the man who lived it could not bear to relive it.